Imagine a man sitting alone in a dimly lit room, surrounded by books and lost in thought. The world outside bustles with noise, laughter, and trivial chatter. Yet he remains undisturbed, absorbed in the depths of his own mind. This is not a scene of loneliness but one of profound solitude. A solitude that nurtures intellect, creativity, and understanding. Why do some of the most intelligent individuals find themselves drawn to such a state, seemingly detached from the social world that surrounds them? Why do they often prefer the quiet company of their own thoughts over the cacophony of human interaction? The answer lies in the philosophy of Arthur Schopenhauer, a thinker who understood the nature of intelligence and its inevitable consequence, detachment from the masses. Schopenhauer believed that intelligence is not merely an advantage but also a burden. The more one perceives, the more one suffers. The intelligent mind does not merely see reality as it is presented. It pierces through illusions, seeing the grotesque machinery of existence, the relentless striving, the futility of human pleasures, and the absurdity of social constructs. Unlike the average person who is content with superficial pleasures, the intelligent individual recognizes the transient nature of joy, the inevitability of suffering, and the mindless repetition of history. To such a person, social life, with its trivial chatter and its preoccupation with the mundane, appears as an exercise in futility. Schopenhauer wrote, "The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him." Thus, the intelligent seeks solitude not out of misanthropy but out of necessity. Solitude is the natural habitat of the profound thinker. Schopenhauer famously remarked, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free." This suggests that the intelligent individual does not withdraw from society because of arrogance or a lack of sociability, but because social engagement often feels like an imposition on thought and creativity. The solitude of the intelligent is not loneliness. Loneliness is an affliction. Solitude is a refuge. It is in the sacred space that one can reflect, create, and grow intellectually. The philosopher, the writer, the scientist, the artist, all have sought solitude to cultivate their genius. Modern psychology supports Schopenhauer's insights. Studies indicate that individuals with high intelligence often experience social anxiety, not due to a lack of confidence but because of a fundamental disconnect between their interests and those of the general populace. Conversations about the trivialities of daily life, gossip, or material pursuits feel unfulfilling. Instead, their minds yearn for discussions on existential questions, art, science, and the mysteries of the cosmos. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, suggested that introverted intuitive types, often highly intelligent individuals, feel drained by social interaction. Their thoughts are rich, complex, and self-sustaining, making the external world appear distracting rather than engaging. While Schopenhauer advocated for solitude as a means of intellectual and spiritual elevation, Friedrich Nietzsche took a different approach. He acknowledged the necessity of isolation for self-overcoming, but saw solitude as a phase rather than a permanent state. For Nietzsche, the Übermensch Overman must engage with the world, challenge it, and reshape it. Immanuel Kant, though a man of rigorous discipline and order, also recognized the importance of solitude in fostering moral and intellectual growth. Yet, he saw rational social engagement as necessary for ethical development. Soren Kierkegaard, on the other hand, emphasized the individual struggle with existence and faith, while he, like Schopenhauer, acknowledged the agony of the intellectual. He placed emphasis on subjective truth and existential responsibility, suggesting that even solitude must be imbued with meaning. If Schopenhauer were alive today, what would he say about the digital age? In an era where social interaction has been amplified through technology, the intelligent are even more alienated. Social media rewards brevity over depth, popularity over substance. The intelligent mind, craving nuance, finds itself exhausted by the noise, the misinformation, The endless cycle of validation seeking, modern technology, while a tool of enlightenment, has also diluted the depth of discourse. Intellectual solitude has become even more necessary, as the world demands constant connectivity, leaving little space for reflection. While Schopenhauer presents a compelling case for solitude, is complete withdrawal from social life truly desirable? Some argue that engagement with others fosters growth, empathy, and new perspectives. Aristotle posited that man is by nature a social animal. Even the most intelligent require human connection for emotional well-being. The challenge, then, is not to abandon social life altogether, but to seek out meaningful interactions that stimulate rather than drain the mind. Furthermore, even Schopenhauer himself was not immune to human connection, though he lived largely in solitude. He sought intellectual companionship through books, music, and selective interactions with thinkers of his time. Imagine the same man, still seated in his dimly lit room, but now a faint smile plays on his lips as he closes a weathered book. The world outside continues its relentless hum. Phones ping, screens glow, and crowds swarm like schools of fish chasing invisible currents. Yet here, in this sanctuary of silence, he feels neither entirely apart from the world nor fully consumed by it. He exists in a delicate equilibrium, a dance between solitude and engagement. What does this balance look like? And how does the modern seeker of wisdom navigate a world that demands both connection and retreat? Schopenhauer's shadow looms large here. He warned that the vulgarity of the masses would always repel the contemplative mind. Yet even he acknowledged the human need for selective communion. In his later years, he found solace in the companionship of his poodle, Atma, and in the letters of a handful of thoughtful correspondents. This reveals a nuance often overlooked. Solitude is not rejection of the world, but a refining of it. The intelligent withdraw not to escape humanity, but to encounter it more deeply, through art, literature, and the silent dialogue of ideas across centuries. As the poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Love your solitude, for those who are near you are far away." Modernity complicates this dance. The digital age, with its illusions of connectivity, tempts us to mistake quantity for quality. Algorithms feed us endless noise, hot takes, viral trends, curated personas, while starving the soul of substance. For the thinker, this landscape is a minefield. Social media, Schopenhauer might argue, is the antithesis of solitude. It replaces contemplation with performance, depth with dopamine. Yet even here, pockets of meaning persist. Online forums dissect quantum physics, global book clubs dissect Dostoevsky, and marginalized voices find platforms to reshape discourse. The challenge is not to reject technology outright, but to wield it with the precision of a surgeon, cutting away distractions to preserve the core of what nourishes the mind. What of Aristotle's claim that we are social animals? Neuroscience offers a bridge between these seemingly opposing truths. Studies reveal that while introverts recharge in solitude, their brains exhibit heightened sensitivity to stimuli, making the chaos of crowds genuinely exhausting. Conversely, social interaction activates regions linked to empathy and creativity. When the interaction is meaningful, the key, then, is intentionality. The philosopher Martha Nussbaum champions narrative imagination, the ability to engage deeply with others' stories as a form of ethical and intellectual growth. For the solitary thinker, this suggests a path to engage not with the many, but with the meaningful, a mentor, a kindred spirit, or even the voice of a long-dead poet. Yet danger lurks in prolonged isolation. History's greatest minds, Newton, Dickinson, Tesla, show that genius flourishes in solitude, but also that the line between sanctuary and prison is thin. Kierkegaard's knife of introspection can cut both ways. Without grounding, the mind risks spiraling into nihilism or despair. This is where Schopenhauer's philosophy meets its limits. His world, steeped in the futility of desire, risks overlooking the redemptive power of choice. The choice to find joy in a symphony, awe in a starry sky, or solidarity in shared struggle. Even Nietzsche, who embraced solitude as a forge for self-overcoming, insisted one must eventually return to the world, armed with new truths. Perhaps the answer lies in redefining solitude itself. It is not a place, but a practice, a daily recalibration. The writer Zadie Smith retreats to a small shed to work. Yet her novels pulse with the rhythms of London streets. Einstein scribbled equations alone, but his breakthroughs relied on dialogues with Bohr and Hilbert. Solitude and society are not opposites. They are currents in the same river. To the intelligent, solitude is where the cacophony of the world is distilled into clarity, so they might re-enter it with something to offer. A poem, a theory, a question that stirs dormant minds. If Schopenhauer walked into that dimly lit room today, he might nod at the man's solitude, but then urge him to step outside, if only briefly, to feel the sun on his face, to argue with a friend, to witness the absurd beauty of a world he seeks to understand. For even the deepest thinker remains human, a fragile, yearning creature who needs both the silence to hear himself think and the dissonance of life to remind him why he thinks. In the end, the dance continues. Retreat, return, reflect. The books will wait, the world will buzz, and the mind, ever restless, will seek its rhythm between the two.